The air in Florida in the summer is very hot and very wet. It feels like wearing a heavy, wet blanket. At 11 p.m., the air smelled like dirt, old fruit, and a storm that was coming but had not started yet. I was sitting on the back porch of my uncle's small wood cabin. The cabin was deep inside a place called the Green Swamp. I watched small bugs called fireflies glow in the tall grass. I grew up in the city. In the city, there are many cars and bright streetlights. It is never truly dark there. But in the swamp, the darkness is very deep. It feels heavy, like it is a real thing you can touch. My uncle had told me, "Do not go past the tall trees." He had gone to the store to get food. He told me the ground was soft and dangerous. He told me that the shadows were long and strange. I should have listened to him. But the heat made me feel weird. I could not sit still. My skin felt tight. I stood up. The old wood floor made a loud noise under my shoes. I grabbed my big flashlight. I wanted to find a cool breeze. I walked away from the house. I walked toward the line of trees. When I entered the woods, everything changed. It felt like I was in a different world. The noise was very loud. Thousands of bugs were making a high buzzing sound. The sound was so loud that I could feel it in my teeth. It was hard to hear myself breathe. I turned on my flashlight. The bright light cut through the dark. I saw tall pine trees. I saw oak trees covered in gray moss. The moss looked like long, dirty hair hanging from the branches. It moved in the wind, but I did not feel any wind. I walked for 10 minutes. I tried to stay on a small path. But the swamp is a confusing place. The ground began to feel soft. My boots sank into the black mud. Every step made a wet, sucking sound. Suddenly, the bugs stopped making noise. They did not get quiet slowly. They stopped all at once. 1 second it was very loud. The next second, it was perfectly silent. It was a scary kind of quiet. Because it was so quiet, the heat felt even worse. My heart began to beat very fast. I felt like a bird trapped in a cage. I moved my light around. The beam of light hit the roots of a tree. It moved over a pool of black water. Then, the light hit something else. I saw 2 eyes. They were not the eyes of an alligator. Alligator eyes look green or yellow. These eyes were flat and white. They were high up, about 6 feet off the ground. They did not shine in the light. They seemed to pull the light inside of them. I stopped moving. I was very afraid. "Hello?" I said. My voice sounded small and weak. The eyes did not blink. They just looked at me. I moved my light down to see a body. But a thick white mist was rising from the water. The mist looked like old, thick milk. I could only see a shape. It was very tall. It was very thin. It was covered in the same gray moss that hung from the trees. But the moss was not just hanging there. It was moving. It was pulsing like it was breathing. "Uncle Dave?" I asked. But I knew it was not my uncle. My uncle was far away at a bright store. The thing in the trees took a step toward me. It did not sound like a human step. I heard a loud snap of a dry branch. Then I heard the wet sound of a foot hitting the mud. I did not wait for it to take another step. I turned around and I ran. When you are very scared, you do not think. You only want to run. I ran as fast as I could. My flashlight moved up and down. The light hit the trees like a fast movie. I tripped over a tree root. I fell hard into the cold mud. My flashlight flew out of my hand. It landed on the ground a few feet away. The light was pointing back toward the thing. I got on my knees. I tried to breathe. The air was hot and thick. I looked at the flashlight on the ground. In the light, I saw legs. They were very long. They were too long to be human legs. They were pale and skinny. They looked like the legs of a big bug. They were covered in short, dark hair that looked wet. The legs moved very fast. They moved in a jerky way, like a broken toy. The thing was coming toward me very quickly. I grabbed the flashlight and ran again. I did not look for the path. I just wanted to find the house. I wanted to see the porch light. I reached the cabin. I ran through the screen door. The mesh ripped as I hit it with my shoulder. I got inside the house and locked the door fast. I leaned my back against the wood. I was crying because I was so scared. It is just an animal, I said to myself. Maybe it is a sick bear. Maybe it is a big cat or a dog. But I knew that was not true. Animals do not have flat white eyes. Animals do not make the air feel cold in the middle of a hot summer night. I stood in the dark kitchen. The house was quiet. I could only hear the clock on the wall and the sound of my own heart. I did not turn on the lights. I was afraid that the light would show the monster where I was. Then I heard a sound. The sound came from under my feet. It was coming from under the floor. The cabin was built on tall poles to keep it out of the water. There was a dark space under the house. Something was touching the bottom of the floor. It was right under me. I jumped back. I hit the kitchen table. Then I heard a voice. It was not a person's voice. It sounded like a recording played at the wrong speed. It was a wet, bubbly sound. It was trying to copy my voice. Uncle. Dave, it said. I could not breathe. The thing was only a few inches away, just on the other side of the wood floor. I could hear it breathing. It sounded heavy and wet. I backed away into the living room. I watched the floor. The moon was shining through the windows. I saw a shadow move. Something was thin enough to slide through the small cracks in the porch wood. Then I saw fingers. They were long and gray. They had many joints. They reached over the edge of the window. I counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. The nails were black and dull. They started to tap on the glass. I realized the cabin was not a safe place. The walls were made of thin wood. The windows were thin glass. The door was old and weak. I ran to the bathroom. The bathroom was the only room with no windows. I locked the door. I climbed into the bathtub. I pulled the plastic shower curtain so I was hidden. I turned off my flashlight. I sat in the dark. I held a heavy glass candle holder. It was the only thing I had to fight with. Outside the bathroom, I heard the front door make a loud noise. The wood did not break. It sounded like it was being stretched. I heard the lock move. The thing did not use force. It reached through a gap and moved the lock with its long fingers. The floor in the kitchen started to make noise. The thing was inside the house. I smelled something terrible. It smelled like the swamp, but much worse. It smelled like old water and dead things. It was a sweet, rotting smell that made me feel sick. The footsteps stopped right outside the bathroom door. I held my breath. My heart was hitting my ribs so hard it hurt. I closed my eyes very tight. I thought that if I could not see the monster, it could not see me. Then, the doorknob began to turn. It turned slowly. I heard the metal click. The door opened just a little bit. Then it opened more. I saw something gray slide into the room. It looked like moss, but it was not. I saw that it was long, thin pieces of gray skin. The skin hung off the creature like old rags. The creature did not open the door all the way. It stayed in the shadows. "I can see you," it whispered. The voice was not a normal voice. It sounded like the buzzing bugs and the wind. It sounded like my own fear. "I can see you." I squeezed the glass candle holder. I was ready to scream. I thought I was going to die. Suddenly, a loud noise filled the room. It was my phone alarm. It was 6 a.m. I jumped. I almost fell out of the bathtub. The sun was coming up. Bright yellow light was coming through the cracks in the walls. The scary feeling of the night was gone. I pushed the shower curtain open. My heart was still beating fast. The bathroom door was wide open. I walked slowly into the living room. The front door was closed and locked. I looked in the kitchen. Everything was normal. There was no mud. There was no gray moss. There was no bad smell. I went to the window. I looked at the glass. I saw 5 long, oily streaks on the window. It looked like someone had dragged their fingers across it. I did not wait for my uncle to come home. I grabbed my keys. I ran to my car. I drove away and did not stop until I was on the big highway with many other cars. People say the swamp makes you imagine things. They say the heat makes your brain play tricks. But when I stopped to get coffee, I looked in my car's mirror. There was a piece of gray, tattered skin stuck to the back of my seat. I never went back to the swamp. And I never stay in the dark anymore.